Welcome to episode 85 of the RXP podcast, where three working individuals talk about the games, movies, and shows they love to enjoy in their free time. I'm your host today, Alex, and joining me as always are my co-hosts for this end of the year episode, Matt.
What's going on?
And Tiffany.
I'm a fake gamer this year.
No, there's no such thing as fake gamers.
Okay.
You played a game, you gamed this year. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, one game qualifies you.
I'll let the audience decide.
Yeah, in that regard, following our last week's episode where we talked about our top 6 experiences of 2023, non-gaming asterisk, this week's episode is our top 6 gaming experiences. So in light of it being gaming, this may or may not include things outside of video games. Maybe it's board games, maybe it's card games, who knows what it is. But if it's a form of gaming, I'd say it qualifies for this list. And just to preface this, for us, for the three of us, and also for you listeners, it felt like this year was a little bit more tight of a year to get gaming in. I don't know about y'all, but for me, definitely I've gamed less this year than I have in previous years.
It feels that way.
Yeah. I've gained drastically less this year compared to previous years. It's sad for me.
Well, I hope the games then that's in your top 6 were worthwhile then, right? With the gaming time you've had a good time with those games. So with that, who wants to start first? We posited it this last time, and I was very emphatic about starting first with my number 6. But I'll step back this time. Which one of you two want to start first?
Do we not want to talk about
top 6
honorable mentions?
Oh yeah, you're right. I completely messed this up.
Yeah, you did,
listeners.
We had a pregame powwow and everything.
I'm just a foolish host.
Wait a minute.
Here.
Yeah, for real.
But rather than getting to our number 6 game first, we're going to be talking about our shout-outs. These are the games that we played that didn't quite make it to the top 6, things we might have enjoyed but couldn't breach the prestigious top 6, as they call it. And so I'm going to start out because I have one from Matt's list last year that I'm going to shout out. It didn't make my top 6 this year, but it was one of the first games I played this year, and that is Tinykin.
Oh, nice.
So the first game I played this year, right when the New Year's ticked over, is the first game I platinumed this year. And, living up to Matt's hype about it from 2022, it definitely hit the spot. This was a great, Pikmin-like, definitely very lighthearted, and just a simple platinum. It's I think it took me 7 hours total to get it all done. So it was definitely easy breezy. There's some collectibles, I had to look up to get some help. But overall, it was a fun time.
Yeah, that was a great game.
I played a game that was a little bit longer than 7 hours. I played for about 120 hours, which was Persona 5 Royal. I finally went back because it was a goal of mine this year to finish that game. And Alex, you joked about it last week. I don't know if it was on the podcast or right after we recorded, that Matt's going to play this big long game and it's not even going to make his top 6. And you're right. But I loved it. It's still my top 10 of the year. And it was such a good experience that I definitely want to check out some of the other Persona 5
spin-offs
games that are coming out. Yeah. And then honestly, it makes me want to live in the hype, in the zeitgeist when a new Persona game comes out. Whenever we get that next Persona, I'm man, this would probably hit so differently. How you have the network and you can kind of see where people go each day. I would love to play that live. So I'm looking forward to it. But Persona 5 Royal, fantastic game. Would recommend. Just didn't meet my top 6.
Yeah, you took your time with it. All 120 hours.
Hey.
Maybe I'll try that next year. I don't know. I have 2 games that didn't make my top 6, even though I barely played anything this year. Mario Wonder and Tears of the Kingdom. They are fun games, but they didn't really scratch a big itch for me. I did spend, over 40 hours in Tears of the Kingdom, but I started getting frustrated because I'm not really much of a builder, never really into Minecraft. Sims only got me so far. I respect the game for what it is, and there were scary parts in the depths, so I never went there. I was too afraid to go in there, so this did not make my list. And Mario Wonder is pretty fun. I just didn't really get into the meat of it. I think I do want to finish it, though. I feel
Yeah.
like, and also I feel like that's a really great plane game for me.
Oh yeah.
I played Mario Odyssey on like a plane ride like last year and loved it. It took me so long to play Mario Odyssey, but I beat it. And so I do have a flight in February that I'm honestly probably going to play Mario Wonder. I'm going to save it for that flight to finish it off.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a great plane ride. I will say Tears of the Kingdom also didn't make my list. I probably played like 40, 50 hours of it. I just, like, Tiffany, we're just the same person. You know, you
Yeah.
like these open world games, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I actually beat Breath of the Wild for the first time
This year.
this year.
Yeah.
And so I
remember that.
actually added it to my list like this year. I counted that for this year. So like maybe 2024 Tears of the Kingdom will be on my list next year.
Mhm.
Breath of the Wild didn't make my top 6 too, but I'm just saying, like, it just, there's so much to do. It was kind of overwhelming. I love the creativity of it all, but it just, I don't know. I wasn't as hot about it for a long time.
I do
So.
have to say that there were aspects of that game that I like freaking loved. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I loved helping that dude post his signs.
Yeah.
Like, trying to figure out how to
Me
post.
too.
Trying to figure out how to post those signs. I was like, bro, I got you. I'm gonna help.
Yeah.
When have I let you down? I'm not gonna let you down again here. I'm gonna help you put the sign up. And I love
The
that.
first couple times I was just like, this guy's such an idiot. Like, it's literally the same puzzle every time. And then I like found myself lost in the middle of like a more advanced area.
Yeah.
And he's like on a hill and there's like only a pole and the end of the pole is kind of pointy. So
Yeah.
as soon as he lets go, it like falls off. And I'm like, all right, you have a point. But also, why are you putting it on the top of this hill?
Yeah.
In the middle of this lava area. Anyway, so cool. Like, there's so much charm to it. I just feel like I didn't give, like, people that it's their game of the year this year,
Mhm.
they're putting like 150, 200 hours into it.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't in that vibe this year. Like, Persona 5 Royal filled that like big game gap that I had, that Elden Ring had last year. Just, I don't know. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
Speaking of sequels, another shout I have is a sequel to a game. I didn't play the first one, but it is a sequel in and of itself, and that is Darkest Dungeon 2. So I played this on Steam. You know, it came out of early access this year, went full release, and I heard the hype about the first one, right? This is a roguelite dungeon crawler. So, you're picking nodes on a map, you're fighting battles, handling encounters. It's a turn-based combat game where it's not necessarily grid, but you're essentially lined up from front to back with 4 characters, and the moves are like basically target either like one of the 4 rows because your opponents are also lined front to back up to 4 people. And so it's this interesting turn-based kind of combat of going back and forth where there's a lot of pushing and pulling. So you want to make enemies get closer to you so you can use certain moves, but then certain moves only hit the back. So you want to push enemies kind of towards the back of the line to be able to hit them. And albeit I didn't have a lot of expectation going into it, despite knowing little about the first game, but it took me by surprise in that it was such an addictive roguelite that, I was done with this game after like 50 hours. And even though I enjoyed it and I did the full clear, I did the final boss and everything, it just didn't hit the mark story-wise, because it is something that's a little bit more like psychological, kind of like horror-esque, where you're kind of like, it's the character or like you as the quote-unquote player like grappling with this kind of like interior monologue. And there's a lot of intrigue with the like presentation about how they represent things, and stuff like doubt or malice or these kind of like negative emotions, but it doesn't land beyond that because it doesn't really kind of give you a full story, if that makes sense, at least from how I interpreted the story. It's just kind of like, here's the experience of this character and here's their turmoil, but then the ending's kind of just like, oh yeah, here it is. So I don't know if they updated it since I played the 1.0 release. I played after maybe like a couple patches, but if they've done anything, in the past kind of few months, I haven't seen it. But it was a fun game, fun roguelite, but it didn't just quite hit that bar.
Sweet. I have one more shout out, and then I'm ready to start top 6.
All
Is that cool with you
right.
guys?
I also have one more shout out too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Because mine kind of
Oh,
ties
yeah.
into my top 6.
Okay, mine's really quick. As surprising, we were before the recording. Matt and I were talking about it feels like sometimes games earlier in the year get left out, or there's there's might be recency bias with things that we've played more recent to the new year 2024. And so this is one of those games. I didn't leave it out because of the recency bias, but because it really felt like I admired its attempt at what it tried to do, but it also just couldn't stick the landing. And that is Forspoken.
Oh, I forgot that even came out this year.
Yeah, right in January. It was literally the first month, and it was the game that I actually played first over something like One Piece Odyssey, which also came out this year. And it surprised me in how the game kind of laid out its story and journey for the character. And it's one of those types of stories where you follow and play as the protagonist, but it's not necessarily a protagonist they write for you to like, which I think is what rubbed people the wrong way, because it feels like a lot of people, especially when you're playing a video game, typically you want to enjoy the character you're playing as, right? Because you are portraying that person, through their journey. And so when a game like Forspoken comes along and the character ends up being this kind of like little bit hateful, spiteful, and not necessarily completely likable character, it feels weird in that I think they did a decent job in writing her story, Frey's story, but it, because she's not likable, it kind of pushes back against you of wanting to play it. And I think for me, even though I didn't mind her character, I think it was the game overall where it actually most suffered not from the story, but from the kind of the open world bloat, as Matt talked about with like Tears of the Kingdom. Like its world is actually massive and takes a long time to kind of do everything you need to do to get the platinum, which I did get. But at the same time, because of that, it makes you forget about a lot of the smaller moments that happen because you have to cover so much ground, do so much things. And even though you look cool doing it, because a lot of the game is based around traversal magic using the different elements, it ends up kind of all blurring together. And so with the combination of a lackluster story and kind of lack of key spectacular moments, it just becomes kind of this like one note type of game. But I would say if it's way on your backlog, or if you find it for like $10-$20 out there, I'd say it's worth the pickup just to see what it's about.
That game had so much potential. Like I was like so ready to play that game, and then meh, like it just like
Yeah.
it just like came and went, and everybody dunked on it, and I was like, well,
Yeah, like a wet fart.
Yeah. So, my biggest shout out of this year, which is not even a game, it's an accessory, and it's the PlayStation Portal. The new way to remote play in my house. Like, I have used it for like at least 100 hours, honestly, at this point. 100 hours of gaming. Alex and I were talking about me playing Power Wash Simulator. I've clocked about 36 hours of Power Wash Simulator on my PlayStation Portal. Like, it is a perfect, like, watching a game, watching a TV show, just having it, and it is perfect, just like for me and my lifestyle. Huge investment, but like a really, really good one for my gaming. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have played like a quarter of this list if the PlayStation Portal did not happen this year. One game that came out, this year that actually won a lot of game awards for best indie of the year, Cocoon. I played, I beat, and I platted the past couple days, and it just narrowly missed my top 6, number 7 for the year.
Wow.
Great puzzle game. Takes less than 5 hours to plat. It is very fun, very magical. I just wanted a little bit more. And honestly, when I started to think about my best indie experience of the year, it's going back to the recommendation I've given both of you, which is Dredge, my number 6 game of the year. This is a fishing simulator. It is kind of spooky. It's got the what is that setting called? Where it's like Cthulhu.
Arkham Horror.
Is it Arkham Horror? Maybe that's what it is. But basically, it's just kind of a little bit. Yes, Lovecraftian. Okay. That's what I'm going after. It's kind of spooky and shrouded in mystery, and it has a really good story that I really enjoyed. And honestly, the best part about a really good indie for me is some sort of gameplay that I really enjoy playing over and over and over again. And it doesn't feel grindy, it doesn't feel like unnecessary, and it doesn't feel like I'm wasting my time. And I really enjoyed it. Like this was my chill game earlier in the year. This was a game where I just like chilled. And once you get past some of like the scary parts of being at night and being scared, it is just an awesome game. Awesome game. Number 6. Couldn't recommend it enough. I think it's on sale a lot of places, and I think I don't know if I think Alex maybe you dabbled in it, but my number 6 for the year.
Yeah, back when you mentioned earlier this year how you were popping off on it, I did actually pick it up when it went on sale during the Black Friday sale, and I took it, pardon the pun or don't pardon it because it's very intentional. I took a dip into it and I rolled credits on it. I didn't get the platinum yet.
Okay.
That's still to be done. But in getting to the credits and doing both endings, wink, wink, that it definitely is more interesting than I thought it would be, especially because the fishing mechanic itself is like rather simplistic, but also not so simplistic that it gets boring. Because it's more so kind of like a timing rhythm based game where it's like, oh yeah, they're all forms of timing in order to like right when you're pressing buttons into fish, but the way they visualize it is different based on like what type of your fishing you're doing, and so it kind of mixes it up very slightly. And the way the timing kind of appears on the screen varies per region, so they definitely try to make it a little less monotonous, even though it's the same, just hitting a button x number of times before you successfully catch something. And so yeah, definitely it fits that bill. I really enjoyed it because I played it with the accessibility option turned on for disabling the aggressive fish, mostly because there was a moment where one of the fish destroyed my boat motor. And when that happens, it is absolutely crippling because you go back to your home base to repair at like 1 foot per second, and it takes you like 10 minutes depending upon where you get damaged. And it absolutely destroyed me. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just put on the passive fish and not worry about it, because albeit I don't think it took anything away from my experience, but it at least took away some of the more negative points that I would definitely have not even rolled credits if I had to deal with it the whole time, because of just how, needlessly annoying it felt like those mechanics were. But I could see how much more it would impact your kind of like tense situation about like, oh man, can it get back to the dock in time? The X thing is chasing me. I got to get away type of thing. All right. For my number 6, and this might come to a surprise to both of you, but because it was high on my most anticipated for 2023, and that is Spider-Man 2.
Wow. That is so much lower than I expected it to be. I honestly, Alex, I was trying to guess where you would be and like what would be your top game of the year. Honestly, this was a game I thought might be up there.
And I thought so too, with it being my most anticipated. And I'll say this, I think any game that makes me tear up while playing is an auto include onto the top 6. And this is one of those games, just like with Spider-Man 1, and we won't get into spoilers about it, but the ending with Spider-Man 1 just pulled at my heartstrings. And there's a moment in Spider-Man 2 that does the very same thing, and I couldn't help but tear up. And so the reasons that my number 6 slot, though, and maybe this is just the sequelitis type of syndrome or what have you, but it is a great game. I love the story. I love the character development. They made a lot of smart choices kind of pacing it out, because never did I feel like the game was stretching on, right? Even though it was, roughly the 20 to 25 hour experience. Like, this is a game that like keeps you moving and grooving all the way until, you web sling into those credits. And the reason it falls down to the number 6 is because despite it continuing to hit all those high notes like Spider-Man 1 did, it felt very similar to Spider-Man 1, right? A lot of the mechanics are similar. Even the way the Spider-Man handle is similar, right? Coming off of Miles Morales in 2020, right? Miles handles very similarly in Spider-Man 2. And with the addition of some things like the web wings, right, to speed up traversal, and just kind of like changes in the puzzles, especially that they don't make you do the same puzzle a lot, but give you a bunch of different puzzles to do a few times each, made it a little bit better. I think just the kind of repetition and feeling like we're trading the same ground, which in a way we were, because it is, half the map was the same as the Spider-Man 1 map. It was more of a good thing, but that's why it only kind of reaches the number 6 spot for me at this point.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, go ahead, Tiffany.
Well, I was just going to say I never got a chance to play it this year, and I really want to. This is going to be... I would like to say that it's an early in the year game for me next year, but honestly, looking at what's coming out next year, early in the year, I don't think that's going to be the case. This might turn into, like, a spring game for me. But I am looking forward to it. But it's interesting. Like, I'm very interested to know Alex's list now that I know that Spider-Man 2 is only number 6.
Yeah. Like, I think it's an amazing game. I think that, maybe when DLC hits, Tiffany, like, that'll be, I'm assuming we might get some DLC next year. So, like, maybe that's a good time to jump in. But, like, I think all your points are pretty valid, Alex. Like, I've been talking to Yasser, a friend of the show, about this because he's actually playing through it right now, and he was asking for my kind of review of it in the moment, and I had kind of talked it almost felt like it was harder to get engrossed into New York because you did get to take some pictures around, but like even taking pictures of different monuments, like in the first game, like that to me was like highlighting New York as a setting, and I just felt like it was more like, oh, you're supposed to already know this place and like be this place. And that was a little bit jarring to me, but still an amazing game. Like one of my favorite games of the year. But yeah, all your points are completely valid. I'm just shocked. I hope listeners can hear the shock in my voice that this is so low on your list.
I mean, I hope you guys can't predict my other 5 then.
No, I have no idea now. Seriously.
So when Matt was talking earlier about games that have a repetitive, like a comfort repetitiveness to it, but like not boring, that actually kind of reminds me of my number 6, which is actually Potion Craft. So I started it in the last week, and I really enjoy it so far. I got it on the Nintendo Switch. I've been waiting for it to come out there for a while. I played about maybe 3 hours of it so far, and I do have to say that I was kind of stuck in level 1 for a little bit because I didn't really understand how to progress one part of the gameplay, which was like selecting a talent or like using my talent points to give myself boosts and stuff. That like I felt like the game didn't really tell me to do that. However, it did have an icon that was kind of pulsating at me, and I finally was like, what is this blinking icon? And I went in there and did my thing. But I like the motion of like throwing things together and trying to create a potion and then selling it to the person who's like, I found a bunch of cockroaches in my house. Do you have anything to help me, take care of that? And originally, I tried to give him a fire potion to be like, kill it with the fire. And he was like, no, thank you. That is not what I'm looking for. I was like, oh, you're looking for poison. I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to burn down your home, but I thought that could help. So there are little pieces to it that I enjoy.
How like, guardrails is this game? Like, is it very much like, oh, you have 3 ingredients. This guy comes up asking for poison, and it's like, oh, I only have like 2 different types of potions I can give him? Or is it like you have 50 ingredients and you're kind of like reading the ingredient? I've never played this game whatsoever.
Yeah.
And actually, you're the only person that I know that has played this game. I've heard a podcast of people mentioning that they've played it, but they haven't really gone in depth into it. Like, is it like more of a puzzle game?
Yes,
in a sense.
It's absolutely a puzzle game. The way the potion crafting actually works is that you have this giant piece of parchment. And in the parchment, you always start in the middle, at least so far in level 1 and 2. That's where I'm at. And there are like mystery potions on different places in the parchment map. And essentially what you do is that each ingredient has a direction and path that your potion will go. So, you basically combine the ingredients and you mix it in a cauldron to make it move in a map path. So you're basically like making your little icon move in the direction you want it to go to make the potion in that location.
Ah, gotcha.
And you get a preview of what each ingredient, which pathway the ingredient will take you. There's a mortar and pestle. If you grind up the ingredient, it takes you a little bit farther than it would normally if you just threw it in whole. It's very much a puzzle game, and you can haggle with the customers. Like they might pay you more if you're able to like like woo them essentially. But the way that you do the haggling is a like not a rhythm game, but when you have a icon or arrow just moving back and forth and you have to hit locations like on the line to like get boosts and stuff. It's sort of like that. Very low key, very great Swish game. Honestly, like maybe great Portal game, to be fair. Even though you can get it for free on Game Pass. Actually, I'd probably say if you can get it for free on Game Pass, you should just check it out there.
Yeah. I can use Backbone to play it on Game Pass. But
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, very low-key puzzle game. I've enjoyed it so far. It's my number 6, mainly because also I'm like, oh, I want to go back to playing that. Or like, oh, I have a few moments. I'm going to whip up a few potions for these people.
And I watched her play it, and the animations are very charming. I would say that.
Yeah.
Because it has that printed scroll aesthetic. Like everything's on this kind of like, the scroll has like the texture to it, and the drawings aren't like solid, right? They have that like weird texture, like white, like mixed in with the colors. And so it definitely has a unique aesthetic.
So talking about a unique aesthetic, number 5 for me, this was one of the earliest games that I played in 2023 and had my game of the year spot for half of the year. Like it held the game of the year mantle for the majority of this year. And that was Hi-Fi Rush. That shadow dropped in January of this year. This is Xbox exclusive. It is a rhythm action game, very much like Devil May Cry, but very cartoonesque. It looks like a comic book, and it is just full of character and charm. It's from Tango Gameworks, so not even something that they're used to really be doing. This is kind of like a first in the genre for them. So this really came out of nowhere, had zero expectations for it. It was, for me, I'm not a rhythm action guy. Like, I've never played a rhythm action game before. I've always been scared out of my mind to play a rhythm action game. If this wasn't on Game Pass and like shadow dropped and like a bunch of people got into it and the zeitgeist began, if that didn't happen, I never would have picked this game up. And I'm telling you what, this game is like rhythm action for dummies. It is so nice. Like it kind of like syncs up to it. So when you hit against the beat, it doesn't matter. Like it kind of like helps you get back onto the beat. Like everything in the background is flaring to the beat, and it kind of like makes you feel like this. I'm literally going to work and I'm like tapping on the beat. Like I have just the rhythm of a normal, like all the levels have the same rhythm to it. And so like I know exactly like X. Like no, I've got this down, and it just like took over my life for a few weeks. It's one of those things where it started off as an 8 out of 10. Like it was just a really great game. It was a great game.
Yeah.
Once I beat it, then all these new levels became available, all these new powers, all these ways to increase your combos and increase your awareness to your party members, where you can like throw things to them and like just make it so much easier and more fluid. The game opened up, and honestly, like I played an additional run. Like I played the game twice in a row.
Wow.
And it wasn't even to like get a platinum or anything. Like it wasn't trophy based or achievement based. Like it was just a fun game. It really took me by storm, and something that I just did not expect. Like honestly, it's one of those things where when I look at a game of the year contender, it's something where it's genre defining, and something where the next time I see something in that genre, I'm going to think about that game. And honestly, like the next rhythm action game that comes around, especially if it's from Tango Gameworks, I'm going to be thinking, maybe I should give it a try. Like Hi-Fi Rush hit so well. Maybe I should give it a try. They definitely have some licensed music. If you're okay with spoilers and okay like looking at the game, like if you're not interested in playing it at any time, there is a boss fight that happens in a bank, and it is probably one of my favorite mashups with licensed music in a game, and one of the best moments of the year. Like it is
Wow.
a boss fight I have thought about since
toxic?
January.
Is it toxic?
It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's a classic piece of music that they remixed into this boss, and it is awesome. Like I need to remember, and I'll just send it to you guys afterwards, because honestly, it's one of my favorite moments of the year. Top 5,
Matt,
easy.
You reminded me that this game existed, because I'll be honest, I forgot about it since it was on Xbox. But I just looked it up. It is also on Steam.
Okay.
It is available on Steam. And so that is something that I will keep my eye on. It is on sale right now, but I'm going to keep my eye on it because I was interested. But at the time, there's a lot of other things I was playing, so it didn't grab me, and I just forgot about it. But definitely, this is a great shout out. I do want to ask, though, did you go back and do the B-sides update where they added like more remixed like versions of songs?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't go back.
So, Alex, are you going to
there is more content.
Are you going to wish list it so that you know when it goes on sale again?
Yeah. I mean, or I might pick it up now. I mean, who knows?
Okay.
Because I definitely love the aesthetic, and I think we did talk about the game back when it came out, and Matt's enjoyment of it kind of in an earlier episode this year. And it obviously has a lot of inspiration and comparison to No Straight Roads, right? And that was a rhythm action game that came out a couple years ago. And so seeing this kind of help popularize that genre gave me hope to say, hey, more people can enjoy rhythm-based games, even if they aren't necessarily rhythm inclined, such as myself, because it's like, we want you to enjoy the music, and we don't want to punish you for not necessarily having a sense of rhythm. And so here's this kind of in between where we can make it accessible, and then on top of that, maybe layer extra difficulties for those people that are just insane, rhythm fanatics that are like, man, unless the song goes at 400 beats per minute, like I can't, they don't even bother playing it because it's too slow for them or something.
Yeah. So Matt, you were saying that this game took over your life for a few weeks and it took your life by storm. I actually have a game that did that for me as well, and that is my number 5 is Disney's Speedstorm. That consumed my life for like a month and a half. And what happened is Alex ended up buying it. It's not the beta phase, was it? Or like, was that
or is that early access package?
Yeah, early.
It's like what you did for Dreamlight Valley.
Yeah, so he bought the early access and he played it, and then I played it. I basically played it on his account, and I would make him go away so that I could play on his PlayStation. And when I was visiting family, that's what I was doing. And then when I left and went back, I would log on to his PlayStation account to play Disney Speedstorm. I was obsessed for like a month. I would say like 5 to 6 weeks with that game. I would play and try to organize time when Alex wasn't on his account so that I could play it, or he'd be like, hey, I left the regular races for you, but I did the other things. I'm like, okay, cool. And I played for a couple hours every day. It was a wild time for me. It really
Never in my life would I think I would utter the words Mike Wazowski is OP.
yeah, and he was. It was honestly, Matt, it was so fun. Like, wait, is it free now or is it not free?
Yeah, it's gone free to play, so it's now live. You can play it. I will say it's hard to recommend now because I haven't played it in like 5 months.
Yeah.
So like since that time.
Yeah.
And then there's also a lot of talks about it does fall into that like free to play grind trap a little bit, where if you're not kind of pumping in the premium currency, there is a little bit of a, or not a little bit, I think a major grind for like leveling and experience and stuff. So that if that pushes you away, don't worry about it. But if you do want to try it out, it's free. It's basically on everything. It's on every platform. So you can play it wherever you want. And there is some fun to be had, right? Because I think, especially because Nintendo doesn't want to release another kart racer, it's kind of like a nice fresh injection into the kart racing genre with the Disney take. I think as of this recording, the most recent season has Frozen characters. So if you want to play as, everyone's favorite Elsa or Olaf, they're there. No Marshmallow / Snowball though, so that's kind of a rest in peace. But
they also remix a few Disney songs or some of the tracks, and it's like
fun.
They go hard.
Remix music.
They go freaking hard on it. It's a good time. But I do want to confess that I have not played it since the free to play. When the first season of early access was over, I kind of fell off it as well. So kind of a little bit of caveats, but honestly, like when I was playing it, I was freaking all in.
Oh yeah, that music goes hard, definitely. And it's funny how all or both of your games kind of relate to music. My number 5 very closely relate to Matt's number 5, and by happenstance via music, Tiffany's number 5, and that is Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this is the Final Fantasy rhythm game, rhythm RPG, you might say, but it's mostly a rhythm game at its core. So this is music from across the entire franchise. We're going from Final Fantasy 1, and just recently, a couple months ago, they did it, DLC, Final Fantasy 16 music. They included it in there.
Let's
Find
go.
the Flame. It goes hard even when you're not playing as Clive, just the same. But yeah, this game, I love Final Fantasy as a franchise. I love especially Final Fantasy music. Nobuo Uematsu, one of the greats, and the every entry into the series, even if the game itself hasn't been great, overall, the music never fails to hit, right? Even 15, especially for me, 15 is a low point, but the music is fantastic. Same thing with 16. Not to say 16 is a low point, but the music continues to be great there. And the fact that they continue to add so many DLC songs, they have stuff from the Nier franchise. They have stuff from this Mana franchise series, right? Like Secret of Mana, Visions of Mana, Trial of Mana. And so they're just taking all these Square Enix IP and importing these songs into this game. I think right now the total catalog of songs is like 600 songs.
Dang.
Wow.
So like they're just like pumping tracks and tracks into it, and it's just a great time. It has that light RPG aspect. As you complete songs in every series, you unlock characters from that series. There is leveling, there is skill setting, and some of the challenges are pretty difficult where you actually have to like formulate a party, right? Like you have like 100+ characters across all the Final Fantasies, and you got to pick the ones that are going to help you like complete these challenges on these songs. And it kind of adds that extra layer of like, yes, I can play the song and finish it, but I might not have had the party to do like the objective in the song. And so it kind of makes you think of like, well, I'm not just caring about the rhythm and hitting all the buttons, but I need to care about like what characters I'm bringing, right? Like what skills do they bring in order to like complete the objective. Like for example, one might be, complete this whole song without dealing physical damage. And so like, right, you're picking, magic damage dealing characters or you're picking healing characters, right? Like you're picking these different characters that, you might just want to pick your favorites, right? It's like, of course I'm picking Aranea, of course I'm picking Tidus, Cloud, Tifa, they're always in the party, but sometimes you got to pick out, the weird one-offs or like the villains even, right? You're picking Chaos, you're picking X-Death, you're picking Seymour, and it's because of the skills they bring to the table that the other characters won't learn, right? Like the protagonist heroes don't learn certain abilities. And so it's this nice kind of mix mash of giving you a little bit more depth to a rhythm game as opposed to it just being music. And so definitely it hit the bar. And plus, in a way, it was one of the first games I played after getting the DualSense Edge controller, so getting all the extra, buttons on the back and stuff. And I'll say it felt really good to be able to customize and like be able to use the whole controller, because as a rhythm game, it is more intuitive than you think in how it kind of asks you for inputs, and it lets you, with the DualSense Edge, kind of customize your inputs. It makes it very satisfying to play when you're kind of like in the groove. Albeit it didn't make me a better rhythm game player. I'm still bad at rhythm games, but at least I didn't feel as bad because it like felt good to like hit the notes when I did.
I played a couple levels with Alex when he needed to get trophies and stuff, and it seemed fun, but I did get confused with a little bit of the button controls of like directional stuff, but overall, like, it was kind of adorable, and I liked hearing the music. So, fun time.
My number 4 is actually a repeat of what we've already talked about, which is Marvel Spider-Man 2. Made it to number 4.
Okay.
Which, this is high, like I don't want to be too down on the game. We talked a little bit about kind of maybe why it's not at the top of our list, but like, let's talk about the things that it right. Like this year is all about 2 protagonists in games, and I felt a little bit nervous how they would handle having Miles, having Peter, switching between them. One, like the seamless just switching to another person, no load screens, fast travel if you choose to do that like a madman, when you could just like swing and glide your way across Manhattan. But it is great. It is a great, great time. Their interaction, the story interacting between Miles and Peter, and the story just in general of it being a Venom story. And we've seen this 100 times in the movies or in TV shows. And, is that boring? No, like they made it fun. They made it a little bit different. It got real. Like there were some moments where I was like, I texted Alex and I was like, I did not expect this to happen. Like, okay. There is some more violence than maybe I would ever expect in one of these games. Like there is just some realness to it. And I think that there's a story that they are building here. And I'm excited to see where they go from here. Like, I think Insomniac does a great job. And I think they're one of those, game developers that are like always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Like everybody loves them and everyone loves their games. Maybe not the best game of any year, but like we got to give them credit. They are doing an awesome job. So, Tiffany, this is like one of my highest recommendations for you, honestly. Like for someone who loves Marvel as much as you do,
I know
you are going like this had the potential of being your game of the year this year. And honestly, if you wait till next year, it has your potential of being your game of the year next year too. So like, give it a whirl. It is a great, great time. And hopefully they put some DLC out.
I need it. I need to do it. I know. You know what else I need to do? Finish my number 4 game on the list. So
what a segue.
I try not to like put games that I haven't finished, but this year's just kind of been a blur for me, right? So this is the second game, I guess technically, that I'm
who's keeping
track?
Okay.
I won't talk about that part, but my number 4 game of the year is Hogwarts Legacy. There it is. I loved my time with that game. Like a lot, and just school happened and I had to like pause, write papers, all this stuff.
But not school at Hogwarts, I guess.
Yeah, I know, I wanted to do my lessons.
Not potions class.
Not
you have another game for that.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, you're tying it all in.
She's getting a minor in potions.
Yeah, so I really need to go back and finish it. Both of you have finished this game. Matt, did you get the platinum?
Yeah.
Dang. Oh,
Yeah.
God. Which
Insane.
Got the
insane.
platinum.
Required
Mhm.
playing the game freaking 4 times. That's crazy
Yeah.
town. Or at least like getting to a certain point 4 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
like that honestly may have soured it enough to make it out of my top 6.
Okay.
Like that platinum
Yeah.
grind, like it was kind of needless, but still fantastic game. Still fantastic.
I
game.
probably won't go after the platinum then if you say that. Like I could a game could totally be soured by that type of like grind for me. So, but I definitely want to go in and finish my playthrough. Honestly, though, if I do love it so much, I might be intrigued to play through it again anyway, like in a different house. But I loved my time in that game. I played, I think, at least 20 some hours. I think, and I had a great time exploring, doing all the things. I was so immersed. I can't wait to see what other game they come out with next, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I was really surprised at the quality of Hogwarts Legacy. Spoilers, it's not in my top 6, but definitely that's one of those games where I think for a lot of people that might not have played games before, especially that might only be Harry Potter fans and they were intrigued by the premise, right, of being their own student at Hogwarts, I think it hits all the marks that a good game should be, or at least to show to someone maybe new to gaming, like, oh yeah, this is what gaming can be, and it can be fun. And, friend of the show, Ariel, like, she finished it.
Yeah.
Like, she played the whole thing on PlayStation 4 and rolled credits, and I was very impressed. She's definitely not like what you'd call a gamer. Like, she plays some games, and I would say like maybe mobile games or like board games here and there, but like definitely not video games. And so the fact that she was able to get through, and I think she said it took her 70 hours
Yes.
to get through the whole thing, like that goes to show like how engrossing the game is, to be able to like keep someone who's like traditionally not a gamer like involved the whole time.
Yeah, I will say, as someone who's a Harry Potter fan, there is something magical about that game. Like walking around
Yes.
Hogwarts in a way where you have seen this, you have grown up on this, and you know these halls, but you never really know how one hall connects to the next, or how this tower happens, or like
Yeah.
you know a little bit about the astronomy tower, but like you don't know exactly how it is. It's like, is this where Harry like hid a little bit? And I remember Maddie was watching me like play some of this game, and I was literally showing her like different places that were in the movie in the game, and as a non-gamer, she was like baffled. She was like, how is this possible? Like, this is crazy that video games can do that. And I feel like as a licensed game, it's honestly one of the most effective licensed games I can remember. Like, it was so effective. It was really great. I will say, having to replay it 4 times, there are unique quests for each of the houses, depending on which one you did.
Yeah.
And that does help a little bit. But man, that game didn't make my top 6, but is something that I really, really enjoyed at the beginning of this year.
Can't wait to go back.
Yeah, gotta go back to Hogsmeade.
Mm-hmm.
Get some more. What was
Butterbeer.
Oh, I was gonna say Nutter Butter.
Like, oh my god.
Maybe they have Nutter Butters there. You never know.
Yeah.
They just have like a
Just
vending
without the
machine.
trademark. Nutter Butter beer. That's what they call it.
That's right.
All right, my number 4, and briefly mentioned already, Super Mario Wonder.
Wow.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, and typically whenever a Mario game comes out, I think from me you can expect it to appear on my top 6 at some point, because Mario games don't miss. For at least the mainline Mario games. I'm not talking about the spin-offs. We're not talking about like Mario Strikers or Mario Golf or anything. We're talking about the mainline 2D, 3D Marios. And so Mario's number 4, or Mario Wonder's number 4 for me. It is such a fun, like whimsical 2D platformer. But for me, what really kind of put it over the top is its advancement in the online space. Because this is where something that I think Nintendo has been hesitant to really grasp and embrace, right? Kind of moving into the digital age and embracing the fact that, right, people like to game together, yes. And so a lot of the older 2D Mars or even 3D Mars has, encouraged local co-op play, but in this increasingly kind of distant, remote life we live now, right? Remote coworkers, remote families, remote friends. Sometimes you can't get together to play the game. And so with Mario Wonder, they kind of made those incorporations into the design to say, hey, listen, we support local co-op. That's the intended way to play this, right? If you're playing with friends or family. But here's this online mode too, which isn't necessarily the exact same, but I think it does enough and it innovates in some other ways that makes it very interesting. And I'm mostly intrigued by when you're playing online in the online mode and you're not playing with friends, you can see random other people like playing this same level as you are at the same time, and it creates this kind of like fake competition like with these randoms that like all you see is their name and the character they're playing, but you can't talk to them. Like you can emote, like there's emotes and stuff and you can see them like moving as ghosts on the screen, but you can't like stop them, right? Like there's no direct interaction. And so it creates this fun like race of like who can finish the level first type of mentality. And I think that's like the little extra that playing Mario in 2023 needed, of saying, hey, it's the same idea, right? You're running from the left to the right, you're jumping on the flagpole, it's the end. But here we're going to create this kind of like pseudo competitive layer, and in some cases cooperative layer, right? Because they have some puzzle levels that, yes, there isn't really a race to the finish, but you can, I guess, help other players figure out certain things and they can help you figure out certain things. That's like adds a really fun layer to the experience because, me having enjoyed the game offline at first because I wasn't in a place where I could connect it online, and then popping that online mode on was like a completely different experience, right? Like going from the single player to this like online kind of like asynchronous multiplayer world. So definitely I think it's a step in the right direction for Nintendo. I'm hopeful a lot more, especially not just Mario, but their other games kind of include this more interesting online presence and incorporation to the design, because I feel like this is like Nintendo starting to dip their toes into it. And I think if they really embrace it and, hopefully improve their overall just network online, Switch Online network or Switch 2 Online, whatever they want to call it, that just makes the experience even better and just we have more good times ahead of us.
Yeah, that game, magical in a lot of different ways. It just looks great. It plays great. Definitely something for Tiffany to play. Another one for her to kind of bookmark to finish off. But yeah, the online was so interesting because they had like very minimal collectibles, like basically find these 3 coins, do these things. Some of them are pretty well hidden. Like there's one that took me a long time to find. Once I found it, I popped in online and just like played alongside some of the people. And I was just trying my best to get people to find this really well hidden one, because there's one literally where there's just like a sliver of dirt on a wall to make you know that you can drill and go underneath it to find it.
I know the exact level you're talking
and
about.
it was so tricky. And I'm like, Mario, look at me. Look at me. I'm a drill. Mario, look, hey, Mario. And I'm trying to emote. I'm trying to get him. He thinks I'm like playing with him and just like saying hello. It's probably like a 5-year-old kid and he doesn't even care about this coin. But I'm like, I'm trying to help you, Mario. Mario, come this way. And it's just like madness. But there's something about that I think it's like a winning formula for them. Like if they can reiterate that in different areas and like, hey, this is a 2D space. This is probably the easiest way to implement this. But can you imagine Mario Odyssey 2 happening with something like this? Like, I don't know what that would look like if it just turns into like Dark Souls or Elden Ring summoning or something. But like, there's something.
Oh my god,
there.
I'm getting invaded by Luigi.
Woohoo! I think it'll be great. Yeah, great game. Great game.
Seeing everyone just like roaming around on an open world Mario game, just
That's
ghosting.
Right.
Yeah, I've played local co-op or like on the same Switch and on 2 different Switches, and playing it on 2 different Switches was pretty fun actually, playing with my friend. I didn't realize that we didn't really impact each other except for saving each other's lives, which I really liked. That was really cool.
I will say my one gripe is like Yoshi. I wanted to play as Yoshi, but Yoshi was basically easy mode. Like you could never die and you couldn't get any of the power-ups. And I was like, but what if I want to play as Yoshi and not Toad or Mario and Luigi? Like,
yeah.
What?
Canon playthrough, Matt. You gotta play every level as Mario first.
I know.
It's the canon.
I did play as Mario eventually, but
how it should be.
Can I actually talk about my number 3?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I'm really excited. I'm really excited about
now
it.
we've gone through the bottom 3. We're in the top 3. This is the upper echelon. This is where the prestige comes into play. So these are prestigious games for each of us.
So
let it rip.
There was a little game that came out, a brand new game that came out this year, tabletop wise, called Lorcana, that took my life by storm. And a young man made a PC version, like an emulation of Lorcana called Pixelborn. And this game is free. I'm hoping that Disney never shuts this guy down. But basically, he made this collectible card game, accessible for the masses. Every card is in the game as we speak right now, all 408 cards with their abilities, and with a client that plays like Hearthstone or Legends of Runeterra or any other card game. It has its own art. Like, this guy went all out on this game and made it free to play, and you can play PvP. And I've been doing it, and I've been testing out decks. I've been crafting. I made Alex play. I played against him when we were long distance. Like,
and I won.
Okay, he did. But it's a really fun time. And honestly, it's a really cool way to test out a deck and see if you actually want to kind of spend the capital on buying the cards in real life. You know? So
that's
like,
kind of neat.
Yeah, so I really like it as a playtesting area, and like I've even like crafted a deck there and then seen the matchups I've had, and I've seen the weaknesses that my deck has compared to another. I'm like, oh, maybe I need to swap in a different card in case I ever, encounter a deck, like this in real life. And so that is my number 3 game.
Leave it to you to have Lorcana in both your top 6 non-gaming and top 6 gaming.
Yes, exactly.
You just got creative with it.
Yeah,
I love it though.
It took over granted, Pixelborn wise, I've probably only played like less than like 8 hours of it, but like it's throughout the time, like I've played it for a few hours, and like, a week or 2 later I played for another few hours. It really scratched the itch of every time I wanted to play Lorcana.
It's pretty cool though, like what you were talking about with this is kind of a way to try out new things, because Lorcana requires money to find these cards.
Yes.
If you're like wanting to like RNG it or just buy them straight up.
Yeah.
And like accessibility wise, which is like a new thing that I feel like we're being a little bit more mindful of in games. Like this is it. Like you don't have to have a ton of money, and you can like try out all these new decks before you just waste your time. Because like if I had to pay for stuff when I was playing Marvel Snap, like one, I probably would not have played Marvel Snap that much, because like I want to try it out without having to like pay actual money. So from that standpoint, that's awesome. Like honestly, I hope Disney never shuts it down. I hope they never find it, because I feel like if they do find it, they'll probably shut it down.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's one of those things.
We're hopeful no Disney execs listens to this.
Yeah. I would hope though that they would think like maybe there's something here. Like maybe we should have like almost like a companion piece or like a companion app so that people can try out new builds. Like that would be a good move on their part. And of course, pay this guy out. And like,
for real. I
don't just shut him down and then cost money.
I wonder maybe in like 5 or 6 years, there could be possibility that an official version comes out. But for now, I really appreciate this guy for making, doing this. He has a Patreon.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've been thinking about supporting him. You can get some cool effects and stuff in the game, but Yeah, it's a fun time. I really like it.
See, the non-gaming entry was the collecting aspect, and this one's the playing. So that's how she was able to get it on both
Yep.
lists.
Makes sense. All right, my number 3. I'm glad to draw first blood of this game because we've kind of talked a little bit about it, and we all 3 played this game, and it's one of my favorite of the year. This is actually what dethroned Hi-Fi Rush halfway through the year, which was Final Fantasy 16. It is a game that I just really loved. I loved. My favorite story of the year for majority of the year, may have changed recently as to what's my new favorite story of the year, but a story that is very Game of Thrones, very Final Fantasy, and just has the political drama and intrigue, and doesn't take itself too seriously. Like it does in a way, but in a way also drags you along. Has like perfect accessibility issues of like, what would stop someone from enjoying this? Maybe they don't know what freaking empire this person lives in.
Right.
Let's have a character, an NPC, that their only job is to tutor you into figuring out what empire we're talking about and like have that active lore system. Like one of my favorite new accessibility options that wasn't even an option. It was just in the game and it made sense and it was great. Combat was awesome, really fun. The powers were awesome. The boss fights, like chef's kiss. Like this game really had it all. One of the best experiences I've had all year. Happily platinumed it. I enjoyed every moment of it. I'm excited to jump into the DLC. I have not purchased it yet, but that is something that I'm hoping maybe when both DLCs release next year, like the second one releases next year, I might just buy it at that point and just kind of binge through it. But I haven't deleted it off my console, and that's kind of like my biggest compliment to the game, which is like I want to be ready for when I get an itch to play Final Fantasy 16.
God, such a great game and a great story. That game I devoured it, but it also consumed me. Like, such a great time. Torgal's best boy.
So good. So good.
Oh yeah, Matt. I have to agree because this is also my number 3 game.
Let's go.
Right there with you. And yeah, all for the same reasons. You know, as I mentioned before, if a game makes me tear up, it's probably on the list, and this game did. You know, it has my favorite moment of 2023 in a video game, and hopefully you guys remember, but it's the accept the truth prompt. When Clive is kind of like fighting the like fake version of Ifrit, and there's this moment where he realizes, oh, he's been kind of chasing this pretend like version, kind of like this misplaced hatred of something, of thinking someone else did something that he himself actually committed, and kind of accepting the truth of saying, right, he has to take responsibility for the events of what happened and facing that head on, right, in that moment, you know. And that's also the same moment you unlock the limit break bar. So definitely it is kind of like both gameplay wise and story wise, it's just such a seminal moment for Clive as a character. And then also just like the game as a whole of like doing such a great job, as Matt mentioned. Like this is a deep world, a lot of political intrigue, right? Where you're dividing into empires, you're dividing into these stewardships, you know, duchies, what have you. And it kind of hits all those like high fantasy notes that I feel like a lot of people enjoying stuff like Game of Thrones, stuff like The Witcher, right? Like you have these warring kingdoms, and it is just, you know, eventually it kind of devolves into your typical, oh, you got to kill a god. Like this is a Final Fantasy, you're killing a god. Yeah. That's just how it is. But I would have it no other way for it to end besides it, because otherwise it's not Final Fantasy if you're not killing a god by the end of it. So yeah, it hits all those notes, and yeah, I'm also waiting for the DLC as well, but I suspect, especially when the second one comes out, because that's the more story focused one, that it'll hit. You know, they did show it will have Leviathan, so we will get, one of the more notable summons that was missing from the main game kind of reintroduced, right, as being Leviathan the Lost. So I'm definitely excited for when that comes out. That'll probably be similar to when the new Final Fantasy 14 DLC comes out, and maybe I think at the same time there will be some sort of crossover. So we'll probably get something Final Fantasy 14 and 16, and Clive will probably show up as an armor set or something in 14. So definitely excited for the future, and fingers crossed. They're doing the DLC, but that doesn't mean they won't do a 16-2, but I wouldn't mind if they did, But if you want to know more about our thoughts, we did do a peer review on Final Fantasy 16 on this channel. Check it out in the peer review playlist. It's there.
Yep. I'm going to talk about my number 2.
All right, number 2.
So, a year ago, both of you said this game would be a Tiffany game, and I was resistant to it. But then Christmas Day 2022, I downloaded a little game called Marvel Snap. And that is my number 2. It happened. It's my number 2 game of the year. I have bought every single season pass. I have played this game for countless hours. I have gotten infinite at least 3 times, which, makes my goal that I made earlier in the year to make at least 90. I made it to infinite. And every month is a new battle to climb, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. I've bought skins of, cards that I really enjoy based on aesthetic and cuteness and, how much joy the card brings me. And it has literally been my year. I've probably played, this game. I probably only missed like 2 weeks of play. So almost 50 weeks of playtime of this game for me. And I still play it and I still love it. I don't know when I'm going to stop playing it. I do my dailies. Thank God daylight savings time is over because I can go back to my 6, 2, and 10. That is the best way to play. Not this 7, 3, and 11. That was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh my god, I have to stay up till 11 and then I have to stay up for another half an hour to complete my dailies. Like, no. But yeah, this game is fantastic. I love it. You guys were right. 100% right.
Yeah, I enjoyed Marvel Snap, and I gave that recommendation. I've broken the habit, which is good for me.
You broke free
in my life,
yeah.
Because I was putting in so many hours on this. I basically replaced that with Persona 5 Royal, and I never looked back. And they keep sending me notifications, and I haven't deleted the app, but like I'm really close to it because I just feel like I can't go back, especially now that I have PlayStation Portal. Matt. No. I've got Power Wash Simulator to play now.
Oh my gosh, you get free stuff this week for the Winterverse.
I know. No, doesn't. I've got my Power Washer, and I'm just living life on PlayStation Portal. It's great.
Okay. Which, by the way, I kind of looked up, like, you talking about the Portal made me want a Portal, and then I looked it up, and it's sold out everywhere. Do we think they're gonna, like, remake it to, like, sell? Or no, because the holiday season is over, so no one's gonna buy it?
I don't know. I feel like it's a hot commodity.
I think it'll be the perennial release. Like, they're gonna keep releasing it. Like, it's gonna be, I don't know how well the PSVR 2 is doing, but they're still selling those things. So if they're still selling that, they're definitely going to continue to sell the Portal.
Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, like anybody who's into remote play that picked it up, it's been like glowing reviews. You should look at like the PlayStation Portal subreddit. Like it is the most positive thing. Like people are just like, I'm a dad and this is amazing. Like this is the best thing ever. Or like I am a younger sibling and I never get a TV time, and like this is like changed the game. Like so this honestly, if remote play is any inkling of interest to any of you, like go check it out because it's amazing.
Well, I just really like lying down and playing games,
yeah,
that's just,
it's been great. Like I've been sitting in bed like playing some games, like getting some good quality game time in. It's great,
man. Who knows? At this rate, next year, 2024, Matt's gonna platinum more games than me, and that'll be the year because of the portal.
It could
I
be.
expect that's what's gonna happen.
Could be.
But he still won't catch up to me in total platinum.
That's true.
That one I have to hold. I have to hold strong.
That is like a crazy amount of platinums. Not gonna happen. All right, my number 2. This is not a PlayStation game. This is my favorite Nintendo game of the year, which is Super Mario Brothers Wonder. This was
Wow.
the first 10 out of 10 game from me. From my personal rating scale, I rate mine on GG, and I rank them to help me keep track of like throughout the year. This was my first 10 out of 10 game. I thought for a long time might be my only 10 out of 10 game, because for me, this just was amazing. Like,
Wow.
you split up Mario fans into 2 categories, either 2D or 3D. For the majority of my life, I have been Team 3D, like Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario 64, Super Mario Odyssey, like those 3, Super Mario Galaxy, like those were the people. That was it. I loved Super Mario World was like the first game that I really remember playing as a kid. So like I do love 2D, but I've always kind of gravitated towards 3D and kind of seeing Mario in that space. But kind of like how I was talking about with Hi-Fi Rush, like Game of the Year contenders are genre defining, and this game definitely changed what I think about 2D. I've been used to this like new Super Mario Brothers 3D or 2D or whatever they've been calling them.
Right.
And they've just been kind of mediocre and not bringing anything new. And this really just was awesome. Every stage, you picking up a Wonder Seed and it absolutely changing the setting, changed like how you played. Sometimes you'd play as a Goomba. Like there is just like they are changing how every stage is played.
Slime.
Yeah, and it's just inventive and fun, and I loved it. And to that extent, like the music, the world, the art, that gave it a 9 out of 10. And really what brought it to a 10 out of 10 was the classic 2D trope, or really classic Mario trope, of having secret worlds. And those secret worlds were things that made me almost have like carpal tunnel. Like I was like over my Switch and trying to ace these really difficult levels. Like some of them were some of the hardest platforming levels that I've played since Sackboy Big Adventure. Like the night, like whatever it was called.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The Knitted Night.
Knitted Night Trials.
Yeah, like that Knitted Night trial was like, my knuckles were bleeding from like me doing this platform. And some of them rivaled that, and some of them were worse than that. It is just like pinpoint precision. I had to like play it on a screen to make sure I didn't drop any frames. Like I was in it to win it, and I just loved it. I ate it all up. I 100%ed everything. I got every collectible in the game.
Wow.
I beat every game.
Masterclass.
I got up to 99 lives naturally. Like I just like destroyed that game as much as I could. I played every single thing. The only thing I didn't do was like the online mode, because I looked up to see what you got from it, and it was like not worth it. But everything else, I just destroyed this game. Like this was a platforming game for the ages and really, really fun. This is something that I've recommended to a lot of my friends. I recommended to my sister to pick up for my nephews. Like this is like a game that I loved. Like I really did. And it for a year that Tears of the Kingdom came and went, this is why I have a Nintendo Switch. Like when Nintendo Switch 2 happens next year, I won't necessarily be picking it up for Tears of the Kingdom. I'll be picking up for Mario. Like that's how it's always been for me. Like from when I picked up Odyssey before I picked up Breath of the Wild back in 2017. Like this is what this machine is for. It is for Mario games and first party games. And it delivered. It really, really delivered this year.
All right. My number
Speechless.
2. Oh, no. I mean, it was my number 4. We talked about it then. And I agree with you. There's just... So it is the quintessential fun. Like it's what Nintendo does the best, right? They make fun games. It's kind of undeniable. Sometimes their games don't run great, but maybe that's just the sign of the hardware. So come on, Nintendo, bring that Super Switch. We're waiting for it. But all right, number 2, as I mentioned before, once again, another game that made me tear up. This time made me bawl, actually, because
Whoa.
this franchise is so near and dear to my heart that seeing the story moments in this game just made me feel the culmination of everything, really. And that is, and maybe the game with the longest title on any of our lists, like a dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. And so this is the kind of interlude story of Kiryu Kazuma that takes place in between Yakuza 6 and 7 and kind of fills in the gaps of where was Kiryu during this time. You know, he, right, if you know the ending of 6, you know, he kind of disappears. And then in 7, he somehow reappears again. And so this helps fill that gap of what he was doing to get to that point. And really, you know, Yakuza games typically aren't that long. They're typically about like 20, 25-hour long games if you run through it. But, you know, this is like a GTA style game, right? Like they want you to do all the side quests. They want you to do all the gambling hall stuff, right? I've played now like 10 games of Yakuza. I still don't know how to play Mahjong.
You should learn.
But it's in every game anyway. Regardless, you know, this isn't about the Mahjong. It's about the journey, right? Like I've literally have played these games over the past, man, it's been like 7 years now. And having seen this journey of this character, right, and kind of passing the torch on to the kind of, I guess, designated next main character of the franchise has been such a joy, because never more have I felt like I've watched or played an interactive drama more than this, right? Like I always recommend people, like, if you want to play this, go through it from 0 to now and treat it like a TV show. I mean, it's going to be that thing where it's like it's a lot more time investment to complete every game, but I'd say every game is like a season of a big TV drama. And I really recommend to say, you know, you'd benefit more kind of watching and experiencing the whole thing in chronological order and just taking it time by time, right? Like if you get tired out, take a break, come back later, you know, it'll always be there. And getting to this point and seeing kind of the resolution really of the first 7 games, right, of 0 through 6, and having Kiryu's story kind of come to a conclusion, right, and we're leading into the next era, it brought tears to my eyes, because there's one key moment that if you've played those first 7 games, not to say you need all 7, but really games, I think it's 4 through 6, it ties that knot so well, and it made me feel so emotional that it was something I just had to put this highly, because it, if anything, besides the fact that the game is shorter, it's about half the length of other Yakuza games. If anything, it made it a better experience because it was shorter, right? Like we are getting the hard hitting story moment to moment. Like I'm not, like I played this straight through over a couple of nights. I wanted to get the story done because I just wanted to see it. You know, it's at this point I feel like I'm a little bit more lackadaisical with getting through games, but this is one of those that kept me like glued. I needed to finish, and it's been a while since I've had a game like that. And so
Binge
definitely,
watching.
despite exactly, is essentially the equivalent of binge watching a show, or I guess there'd only be a show. Everyone binge watches a movie.
Yeah.
2 speed, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't say more. Like, there's so much that I want to say, but a lot of it would be spoiler. But honestly, I think for the people out there that understand like a Dragon / Yakuza, you probably understand like how much it means to like the series as a whole, even though it is considered kind of like a side game. And, you know, I will say shame on you, Sega, for not doing a physical release in the West.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
shame on you for only releasing the copies in Asia. You know, I bought an Asian copy, but I would have preferred an English copy. So I hope in the future you continue to publish physically. But besides that, great. Continue publishing it. I love it. I am a little bit scared because they did say for the next Yakuza, which is coming out next month in January, that it is the longest Yakuza to date. And it seems like we might be talking Persona 5 levels of commitment here.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I am scared, but also very excited because they have a brand new map. We're going to Hawaii, baby.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to soak in those sun rays, you know, deliver burgers. There's a mini game where you're a food delivery guy riding a bike and you got to deliver food to like pedestrians and apartments and stuff. It looks fantastic, Crazy Taxi style. It's gonna be a great time.
Grilled pineapple is pretty delicious.
That's true.
Yep.
Here's a question for you. Predicting the future, Alex, which will have better segue gameplay? The new Like a Dragon or Final
Like a
Fantasy
Dragon.
VII Rebirth?
Like a Dragon.
Wow.
Like a dragon,
Wow,
no doubt.
hot take.
Cloud Segway, awful. That thing can go 2 miles per hour. You're typing up the Segway and Like a Dragon, you're speeding down this. You're breaking speed laws normally designed for cars. No, the police are gonna book you to be like, sir, that that bipedal vehicle is breaking the speed limit. We're gonna have to arrest you, and then I'm just gonna beat
And also,
him up.
where
'cause
is
that's
your
how we do in
clothes?
Yakuza.
Yeah. This is not a nudist beach.
Exactly.
This is not a nudist beach. Wow, you're gonna have. I hope you're like getting sleep now, because if that comes out in January and Rebirth comes out in February, like, whew, you got some meaty.
And what's more awful, we got P5 or P3 Reload coming out at the beginning of February, right after Yakuza comes out. We have Grand Blue Fantasy, the RPG, also coming out beginning of February. It's a time to be alive for RPG lovers.
It is true. It's true.
I don't want to go first for my number one.
Okay.
All right.
I'll go first.
All right. Number one, our number one game of 2023. Here it is, folks.
My number one game. This was something that was different for me because, like, we've done this for 3 years now. My last 2 game of the years, Deathloop from 2 years ago, Elden Ring from last year. Both of those, as soon as I played them, I knew that these were going to be my game of the year. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I just had to figure out 2 through 6. And this year, for the longest time, or for, a couple months, Mario Brothers Wonder has been my game of the year. And while I did give it a 10 out of 10 in my own, like, review scale, I was like, is that really going to be my game of the year? It just didn't feel the same. And then I played a game called Alan Wake 2. And let me tell you,
wow,
this game stole everything from Super Mario Brothers Wonder. I actually played Alan Wake Remastered for the first time in 2023. So I had played it a long time ago, never finished it. So I actually played it from start to finish, got the platinum and everything, and then had that going into Alan Wake 2. And this game is the best game of this year for me, easily, by far. This 10 out of 10 is by far over Mario Brothers Wonder. Not to take anything away from Wonder, but I feel like the gap is there. And I'm so happy that I played it and that I fit it in. I actually got the platinum over this past weekend. And so
wow, congrats.
Yeah, did it right over the holiday. So this game is a narrative masterpiece. I think Remedy is just like in their own league about their own meta and about their own games and tying them in together and making it something where you're actually talking. Like, you have to hear other people's commentary to really think if you interpreted it the same way that other people did. This is another dual protagonist, and I think both of them were captivating in their own way. I think, like, this game, while this is more of a horror survival game, which is definitely not something that I'm usually into. I'm not really into creepy things all too often. It was amazing. I just had a really great time. Was scared out of my mind for a majority of the time, but I think that they make it to where, yes, you're scared out of your mind, but then you're going to have like a musical number that's just a whole chapter. It's just a musical number. It's very like similar in style to
was it the Game Awards?
Ashtray Maze. Yeah, it's that exact
performance?
same number from the Game Awards, and it is just comes out of nowhere. It honestly is amazing. I just enjoyed this game to pieces. I think that for me, some of the things that they did as far as like accessibility, like it definitely has like Twin Peaks vibes throughout it all. This year I did a lot of hiking, a lot of backpacking, so touched some grass, touched some trees, was out in the middle of the woods, spent a few nights out in the woods camping with a buddy of mine, and being able to see kind of like how creepy it is, like being on the Appalachian Trail at night when the only person that you know is the buddy, your hiking buddy that's like setting up his tent, and like not another soul is on the trail, and taking a flashlight and just lighting up the trail, lighting up the trees, hearing things in the distance, and like lighting up just trees and not seeing anything, but like your mind is playing tricks on your like everything. It feels like you're being surrounded by people that don't exist, and seeing that in a game that just nails that setting. Like the light that is shined through the trees in the game looks like the light that I shine in the trees like in real life. Like it is, they just nail the setting, they nail everything about this game. Alan Wake is a writer, and so his big thing is trying to rewrite his story and to progress his story by rewriting his own story. Like that's basically like the inception moment, right?
Oh.
And so he's literally in a setting, and he just presses the pause button, basically goes into his own mind palace and basically says, I'm going to change the story. And you're literally clicking how to change the setting, and based upon which setting that you're doing, it changes the atmosphere instantaneously. And maybe you're able to get through a door or get through this like subway station. So like there is so much depth to this. It's very similar to kind of what the Medium tried to do years ago, of kind of working through kind of puzzles in a way that is narrative focused, and it just nails it. Like it absolutely nails it. So very fun collectibles, very fun platinum. I just enjoyed it. I can't wait for DLC. They are highly teasing DLC and a third game. So I'm excited to see what happens next.
Matt was Alan Wake. He was living the existence.
I was living it. So good.
And he was writing his own story. All right, my number one game. You know, I mentioned this earlier in the year, and it has held the spot. And that is Octopath Traveler 2.
Okay.
There we go.
You know, and I don't want to boil it down too much because I've already talked about a lot about it, but it really comes down to, does the game have memorable moments, right? As Matt mentioned, right, there's a lot of, you know, kind of that musical number coming out of nowhere, or just the kind of like mind-bending, like puzzle solving way it kind of like engrosses you into that game for him. And like for me, it's the way they portray, you know, in this case, it is 8 travelers, right? You are following their 8 distinct stories. It's very similar to the first game in that regard, but they do a much better job in kind of incorporating those characters into each other's stories. So you don't just get kind of the, oh yeah, you follow each character, but none of the other characters ever show up in the other people's stories. It's just kind of like it, whoever's there is just in your party for gameplay's sake, not necessarily for narrative's sake. And in this case, they remedy that. You know, it's not 100% fixed, but there's a lot more character interaction. They even have shared character story chapters now. So like specifically 2 of your party members will have a journey together. And so there is explicit kind of camaraderie and interaction in those cases. But by the end of it, you know, they do tie up the story where every character is linked in a very explicit way, and it ultimately comes down to the true final boss. And I mentioned it before, you know, that I got the platinum trophy on this game. I 100% it for basically, and the final boss, you know, that you have to do, the true final boss, it took me 10 hours to beat.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's been a long time
Wow.
since I've had a game where I've had that much of a challenge on one kind of, you know, trial in the game, not necessarily the game as a whole, but just one aspect. And for me, it was just hours and hours of, you know, trying different team compositions, right? Jobs, you know, this is a job-based game and you can equip any pair of jobs onto each character. And so it was just the trial and error of trying different things, having different skills equipped, having different equipment equipped on every character, and finally getting that kill, you know, flat screen flash pause of the final boss after so many hours of attempts was just such a satisfying moment. And because of that, you know, it has stuck with me throughout the year. I haven't had another moment like it. You know, a lot of games, right, we do it because it's an enjoyable pastime, but also at the same time for me, right, I do it because I love sometimes, right, that level of resistance, right? Like these are challenges to be overcome. And in that case, having such a grandiose challenge of a game that I loved, right? Like this was the last thing I needed to do to finish it. And because I loved the rest of the game so much, I felt committed to even attempt it, right? Because so many other times, if I were to hit that wall, I would just drop it, right? Be like, it's not worth it. I love the game. I don't want this to be that Matt situation where I'm grinding extra playthroughs of Hogwarts Legacy just to get the platinum, and it makes me end up having a lesser opinion of the game because of it. And in this case, it did not, right? Like this was a challenge to overcome, right? This is the true final boss. It is a world endangering threat as they set it up in the story, so it makes sense how difficult it is, and it lives up to it, right? Like the music is blasting every time you switch stages of the boss. It kind of, right, transitions the music to kind of emphasize the mood and everything, and it's that level of triumph where I'm like, okay, I'm done, but I wish I wasn't type of thing, right? Like it's that thing where this was the finals challenge. I've done everything. There's no DLC for this game. I hope there's a third one, right? Like the directors I've read interviews talk about it to be like, maybe there is or isn't, but they've only even made Octopath Traveler 2 because they thought they had things to improve on the first one.
Mm.
And a lot of the development staff said they put a lot into this. So I don't know if they have the energy to create a 3, but I hope they do because they did such a good job improving over the first to the second that I feel like there is that natural step to make an even better third. And, I'd be happy to do another 10-hour grindy boss fight. Sure, I'll get my ass beat if that's what it takes because I love this game. I love, especially, I just want to shout out, every character has their own motif of storytelling. And in particular, the cleric, who you would think, right, like the cleric job is, they're typically like a priest. They're very holy. And in this case, they portray the cleric as this kind of like dark, repressed, like basically moody Sherlock Holmes. Well, I guess Sherlock Holmes is moody, but even more a more moody Sherlock Holmes, edgier Sherlock Holmes. So it's a very like clue oriented, like it's the cleric figuring out, we have these mysteries, I've figured out these clues, what exactly is going on here. And it was such an engrossing tale, and it's such a nice way to flip the story on its head where it's like, oh, you think it's going to be some sort of like religious related, art thou holier than God type of story, but it's the exact opposite, right? Like you go into these dark stories as the cleric. Similar thing with like the apothecary class, like that character storyline is very dark and brooding when you think, oh, apothecaries, what are they? They're traveling healers, right? Like they want to help cure the ill. And they just completely have these stories that clash with what you think is a trope. And just all these stories combined, culminating in that final battle, was just a joy to experience. So shout out to you, Octopath Traveler 2. I hope there's a third one, and maybe even a fourth. Hopefully Square sees the potential in this series, and this just becomes like Final Fantasy, and we get Octopath Traveler 16. I'm here for it every single time.
Game of the year 2040.
Exactly.
Wow. I still haven't finished Octopath Traveler 1. I don't think I'm going to go back to that game. But hearing you really endorse this one, wow.
Yeah, just skip it to 2. You don't need to finish 1. Just play 2.
I guess, yeah, that could be a thing. When you mentioned that you hope that there's an Octopath Traveler 16, I was like, holy crap. I mean, they are going to be using that technology, the HD 2D, in a lot of other games, so that's pretty cool. I do like that kind of has spawned off of that. So my game of the year, I'm pretty sure you guys know what my game of the year is. We've already talked about it. It's Final Fantasy 16.
Nice. I
loved that game. I love the story. I like the characters. The story among siblings really hit close to home. The playing over the decades was really cool, honestly. Like playing a young Clive into an older Clive helped like give a little bit more impact with the relationship building, even though it happened off screen. Really understanding the journey that they've went through, seeing the communities that they've developed and built. I really enjoyed the gameplay. I didn't think I'd like the fighting style, I guess, but I really kind of jived with it. Like, I had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I used, a couple of the helping rings because I wanted my combos to just like kind of trigger when they showed up. I kind of like that accessibility option with it. And it didn't make me feel like I wasn't getting the most out of the game or anything. So I had a great time. We've already like kind of talked about it a lot. I really liked it. And I probably will check out the DLC when Alex buys it.
No pressure, Alex.
Yeah.
Just her
The perks of
enjoyment.
having the shared library. Are you gonna get to Dredge? You have access to that
yeah.
too.
So I'll think about it. It's
My
too
recommendations
spooky.
mean nothing.
Matt, the moment you recommended Tinykin to me, I played it and I platinumed it before Alex. So
That is
point.
true.
That's a good point.
She was the first to take the dive into Tinykin,
Yeah.
but she won't dip a toe into Dredge.
I don't like spooky things. So we'll see.
Accessibility. I turned it on. You'll see the spooky things, but they won't chase you. I don't know if Alan Wake 2 has anything like that.
I don't know if Alan Wake 2 is for you.
It's not gonna be.
There was a lot of audible gasps and screams on my behalf. Like, it is a scary game.
I am not playing. I'm absolutely not playing
Yeah.
that game.
But Dredge, I will say, not to bring this back to Dredge, my number 6 of the year.
Not to dredge it up.
Yeah.
But it is one of those games where it's scary at first, but once you start being in that world and you start like beefing up your boat, and you don't have to always go outside at night, but like you can like beef it up just from like finding stuff in the day. Once you beef it up, like it's one of those things where it's like they can try to bite me if they want, they'll lose. Like, my boat is awesome, so like you can get to that point, and yeah, accessibility's out there.
I mean, I do love fishing.
I know. I'm telling you. How many times do I tell you this is a Tiffany game? This could
That's
be it.
true. I really should listen to you. Next thing you know, though, it's like
she has to get to Spider-Man.
It turns into my personality. Like, you're
Yeah.
like, Tiffany, this is a great game for you, and I'm like, damn, you were right.
You're right. It was right there all along.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started with Snap. Next is Dredge. Who knows if she'll ever get to Spider-Man 2.
Oh, she has to. It's gonna be good.
That's gonna be 100% before Dredge. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with that.
Okay.
I mean, it was higher on our list.
True. Yep.
So.
Yeah.
All right, with that, those are our top 6 games of 2023. Let us know down in the comments below if any of these games made your list, or maybe you come back to this later, you take a listen, and you've played one of these games that we enjoyed and you enjoyed it too, or you hated it. You let us know that as well. These are our recommendations of what we've got to. We try to get through as many games as we had time for this year. I know for all of us, we played, I guess I would say, significantly less games than we normally would, just due to life circumstances and such and so forth. So with that, shout out to Grandmaster Doug for the tunes, and until next time, take care.
Yeah. This is not a nudist beach.